We are starting section 6 of our course, which is all about authenticating users with Cognito and API Gateway. In this section, we will have a look on 1. Overview of Cognito, 2. Create a Cognito user pool, 3. List users in the API and on the site, 4. Create a new conversation, 5. Adding sign up and sign into the front-end app, 6. Create verification page, 7. Add login and logout, 8. Using a Cognito authorizer with API Gateway, and 9. Passing user token to the API. Let's discuss about solution of assignment for day 5. In last section, we gave you assignment, remove all hard-coded user stated as student in Lambda function with Cognito usernames parameter in event object. So let's see how we can solve it. So let's go to the AWS console and search for Lambda and select it. Now go to tdw-chat-conversations-get and scroll down to the function code. Now just look for a student. There is one on line 13 and another on line 15. So as per given assignment, we wanted this attribute to be called a Cognito username. So let's go ahead and replace those two strings with event.cognito username, and same for line 15 as event.cognito username. Now press save, and we can also update our test to make sure it actually works. Let's go ahead and choose configure test events. Also, we have to add it saved test event, so let's select it. So the parameters for this test case were empty. So let's add in a parameter, double quote Cognito username colon double quote student. Let's save and click on test. Looks like it worked. So let's go to root level of functions and select tdw-chat-messages-post and scroll down to the function code. Now on line 16, let's change it to event.cognito username and click on save. Alright, so now we have Lambda functions that expect to get the username as part of the event, and that's great. But currently, nobody is actually supplying that information. Now, eventually, we'll have an authorized in the API gateway to tell us who is calling the API, but we don't have that yet. So, how do we set this value then for now? Well, we can use input mapping templates. So, let's go back to the API gateway in the console and select our API. Now, let's select the conversation/id/post. Now, we can click on integration request to change the input mapping. Scroll down to the under a body mapping templates and expand it. And we can select the applications/JSON mapping that we created earlier. So, we already have two values that are mapped here. We are just going to add a third one with a static value rather than the one that's pulled from the request. So, for now, we can just hardcode here and add as comma double quote Cognito username colon double quote, and we will hardcode that to student for now. So, we are kind of moving the hard coding from one place to another here. But this will set things up for doing this the real way later. Now, click on save. So, conversation get needs the same change, but it doesn't actually have an input mapping at all yet. So, go ahead and click on that. And click again on integration request. Now, scroll down and under body mapping templates, expand it, and we will select a second choice there. Now click on add mapping template and content type for that is application/JSON and click on checkmark. And for the template itself, we can just type in curly brackets, double quotes, Cognito username, colon, double quotes, and student. Now click on Save. And since we made changes to the configuration of the API, we need to deploy them now. So let's go to Actions and choose Deploy API. And select our stage as Production and click on Deploy. Now we need to generate a new client-side SDK as well. So click on SDK Generation and we will choose for JavaScript. Now click on Generate SDK. Now we will unzip it and will upload that into our S3 bucket. Alright, so let's just make sure that our site still works. So go to the Properties tab and go to Static Web Hosting and copy that endpoint and paste it into new tab. Now at the end of URL, let's add /chats.html and press enter. Seems like it's working. Awesome. Let's go ahead and just walk through it here. Let's start a Go into Chat with Darshit here. Now we will add new message as test message for assignment of day 5 and press send. It's working fine as well. Alright, so that's it. Our Lambda functions are now ready for Cognito. Even if we are still hard coding a little bit there, but we are one step closer to a fully featured application here that you can log into and deal with that identity properly. In this video, we will look at an overview of Cognito. So we need to talk about user management. If you were going to write your own user management system, you would have to worry about how you are going to store passwords, how you are going to do user verification, how you are going to send email and SMS messages, how you are going to do a ton of things around administration and things like that. Luckily, AWS gives us Cognito and Cognito is going to do just about all of that for us. So, in this section, we are going to set up Cognito and by the end, we are basically going to have a complete app. So, let's get started. It's finally time to start adding some identity to our app. To do this, we are going to use AWS Cognito service and as usual, we are going to look at what Cognito can do before we jump in and start using it. Cognito isn't really one service, it's more like 3 that all operate under the same umbrella. The first service and the one we will be using is user pools. User pools provide your app with its own identity. This means that your users have usernames and passwords just for your application or site. You can create groups and manage permissions at a fairly fine level. There are also quite a few options for customization, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. The next service is federated identity. This is not quite as detailed as the user pools. This service can allow you to authenticate users from a variety of identity providers such as Facebook, Google, Amazon, Twitter, and others. Using federated identity, you don't have a lot of information about your users, but your application is available to a very large number of people without the overhead of sign up. And finally, there is the sync service. Sync can only be used with federated identity pools. With sync, you can synchronize data across devices and associate it with the federated account. This can be useful when you are writing a mobile app, but it's less useful in a browser, though you do have the option of local storage. Since we are using user pools, we are going to spend most of our time talking about them. There are a lot of features, so we are not going to go into too much depth. Still, we want to give you an idea of what is available even if we are not using it for our project. We are going to break the features into a few different groups. There are related features even if they are under different menu items. The first group is user information. Right from the top, you can see your users in groups. This is useful for user management and creating groups with particular roles. You can also look at individual users to see more information about them, reset their passwords, or even disable and delete the user. The other part of user information is the attributes section. From here, you can determine if users log on with usernames, email addresses, or phone numbers. You can also define which standard attributes users should have, such as real names and locations and things like that. On top of that, you can always define your own attributes for the users too. Next, we will go into security and sense Cognito user pools, manage a complete user directory along with credentials. Security is important. There are a few different aspects to security. The most basic aspect of security is password policy. Now, we are not going to get into a debate over whether special characters are useful in making passwords more secure. You can make the decision yourself. The policy section allows you to specify some requirements on the passwords for your application. Next, we have multi-factor authentication, or MFA for short, and verifications. Multi-factor authentication is when you use an app or a text message to get a special code to verify your login. You can configure whether that's supported for your user pool. You can also configure how certain you want to be about the information that users provide. Specifically, you might want to make sure that their email address or phone number is correct by doing some verification. Thankfully, you don't have to figure out how to send email or text messages. Cognito takes care of that for you. Finally, we have advanced security. This is a very new feature that has no free tier and costs more than standard Cognito. So, consider that your warning if you decide to give it a try. The idea of the advanced security features is that they act as an intelligent layer of protection on top of your user pool. They look for suspicious logins and help you determine how much verification of identity your users need. It looks cool, but again, it's going to cost you money. Next, we have some more superficial customization options. The most superficial customization is the messages that are sent to email addresses for verifications or invitations. You can give the emails your own custom flair so that they feel like a part of your app. Next, we have triggers, and of course, they are Lambda functions that can be triggered at certain times. AWS is really putting these types of things all over the place so that you can do all sorts of background work that way. And finally, we have the devices section. This basically lets you determine whether devices can be remembered by the user pool. This is only useful for MFA, multi-factor authentication, when you want to allow users to bypass it by remembering the device they are using. There are a few other things here that don't really fit into a good category. The first of this is app clients. We care about this because we'll need a client for a website. Next, we have tags. We have seen in tags there are a lot of other places in AWS so far, like DynamoDB and API Gateway and Lambda, and this is no different. These are just convenient ways of grouping resources together. Analytics is a way to really track your users. You can set up campaigns for your users. This feature uses Pinpoint, which will probably cost you money as well. So once again, this is your warning about possibly leaving the free tier if you want that feature. Cognito also comes with a fall OAuth 2.0. This is especially useful when trying to grant access to your app from other applications like Facebook apps. We are not going to mess around much in this area, so we won't go into any depth right now. We also have some options for federation, and if that sounds strange, it's okay. Yes, Cognito has federated identity, but this is not it. Federation and user pools provides a way to log into the user pool using another identity provider. The set of available providers is more limited here than federated identity. On top of that, you create a record in your user pool for the user even though they are authenticating it with another service. In short, the difference between federation and user pools and using a federated identity pool is how much you know about the user.